Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ajay. I work as a monetization specialist at Google. This is my colleague Pratik. In today's agenda, we will be covering AdSense policy, the best practices around policy, and we will also be covering the monetization best practices that you can employ for a better performance on AdSense. Before we get started with this live stream, I'd like to remind you that in the description, you will find a link to the content that is being shared today. So please make sure to download the content that's in the description and go through it later. Now I'm handing it over to Pratik, who will be talking to you regarding AdSense policy. Thank you.
Thanks, Ajay. Hello, everybody. My name is Pratik, and I work on the Google AdMob team as a monetization specialist. Today's agenda, we'll be covering about AdSense policies, some of the best practices to keep your account in a good standing. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about why do we create these policies and a little about Google's advertising ecosystem. So Google's digital advertising ecosystem comprises of three integral players, and each one of them plays an equally important role. Our ecosystem comprises of our advertisers, who basically help our publishers monetize their sites, and it also comprises of our publishers, who in return help our advertisers reach their users. And most importantly, we're all here for our users, who not only help a network grow, and hence it's very important that we create a positive user experience. So why do users trust the Google Ad Network? As we all know, the Google Ad Network is a family-safe network with policies that make sure that we do not serve ads on any adult content. We also make sure that content is original, informing, and appealing, adding to a positive user experience. And most importantly, that users are clearly able to distinguish between the ads and the content. Our biggest commitment is our commitment towards quality. Our acceptance rate of publishers into the AdSense program is as low as 20%, as we want to make sure that we work with some of the best publishers to create a positive user experience as well as maintain a healthy ecosystem. So what are some of the benefits of enforcing publisher policies, right? Some of these benefits include helping advertisers trust digital advertising and making sure that our advertisers trust the fact that their ads are served on high quality content as well as on family safe content only. We also want to make sure that we create a great experience for our users by making sure that ads are served on high quality content and content which is unique and adding value to the users. We also want to connect our publishers to over 1 million advertisers, which in return gives our publishers high fill rates as well as high CPMs. In the whole process, we basically want to help our publishers build enduring businesses. So how does the AdSense team decide on what action should be taken on a particular account? We divide our actions into two big buckets and then into further subcategories. So we divide our actions into site-level actions and account-level actions. Now let's talk about site-level actions first. Site-level actions are comprised into site warnings and site disablings. And what could be a common example of each scenario, right? So a site warning could be an example where let's say you as a publisher have a really good quality site, are offering unique content and adding a lot of value to the users, but possibly on one of your pages or one of your URLs, you have content that is violating our policies. So we send you a warning only to explain it to you that this particular URL is violating our policies and you should be fixing the same. Not doing so in the next 72 hours could lead to a possibility of your site being disabled. The next step is a site disabling. Now, when do we take this action? We take this action when we see that your account overall is a good quality account, your traffic is very legitimate, as well as you're adding value to the users, but one of the sites that you're monetizing upon is completely violating our policies. Hence, we make sure that the ads are disabled on the site immediately, but your account standing otherwise is not impacted. Now, let's talk a little bit about account level actions. Account level actions are divided into three subcategories: account warnings, account suspensions, and account disabling. And let's talk about an example of each scenario. So when do we decide that we should be warning an account? When we see that a particular account has a good quality site, has good traffic, but a very small part of the traffic is leading to invalid click activity or is leading to advertiser damage and bad user experience, we send out an account level warning with an intent that we want to inform the publisher that your account has some violations from a traffic perspective or a site quality perspective, and we request you to fix the same at the earliest. The next action is an account suspension, which basically means that no ads will be shown on your sites for the next 30 days, and post that, your account will automatically be active again. Now, what could be an example of this? An example of this could be that you're serving ads on a good quality site, but part of your traffic is violating our policies in terms of the fact that it's leading to invalid click activity and advertiser revenue damage. In this case, we basically want you to identify the source of the invalid click activity, go ahead and block it so that this mitigates the risk of any further advertiser revenue damage. The last action, or the most harsh action, is for account disabling. And this action basically leads to the fact that publishers will not be able to participate in the AdSense program anymore. Now, what could be a scenario where we take the harshest of the actions, right? And a scenario for this could be that the sites that you're monetizing upon are leading to a bad user experience, are violating AdSense policies, as well as the traffic that you're receiving is leading to high amounts of invalid click activity and advertiser revenue damage. So now that we've spoken a little bit about the AdSense ecosystem, what is the reason behind creating these policies? How does the AdSense team decide on actioning upon a particular account? Let's talk a little bit about AdSense policies. Now, these policies are really simple and fairly easy to implement. The first one being very basic, right? Don't click on your own ads. We all know that we want clicks to be out of genuine user interest and not create any kind of advertiser damage. Please don't click on your ads or ask others to click them, as by doing so, your account could get flagged, and these clicks will not get counted towards your revenue. The second piece being think like a user. Now, what do we really mean by this? What we mean by this is create content which is unique and which offers good user value. And how do we define good user value? The way we define good user value is that please create content which a user is able to find exactly on what they're looking out for on their site. So for example, if a user is looking out for something about the content that they're looking out for on your site, if they're not able to find it, you will be creating a bad user experience, and the chances of the user visiting your site again become fairly low. Keep your content family safe and legal. As we all know, again, AdSense as a platform is a family safe platform, and we do not allow monetization on any adult content. At the same time, please make sure the content that you are monetizing upon is owned by you, is created by you, and if in case you do not own it, you have the legal rights to distribute the same. Maximize contents, not ads per page. Now, what do we mean by this? What we mean by this is that the focus on a particular URL in your site should be on the content and not the ads. Your focus should be on more content and not more ads, and that a user should clearly be able to find the content that they're looking out for. So create new, relevant, and interesting content and keep updating it regularly for your users to return back to your sites. Avoid deceptive layouts. What do we really mean by this? What we mean by this is that a user should be clearly able to distinguish between the ads and the content, and that they should not be clicking upon ads leading to advertiser revenue damage as well as accidental clicks. As best practices, we recommend that you don't place ads near images to enable accidental clicks. Keep ads away from games, slideshows, or any click-heavy content. Don't duplicate content. Now, what do we mean by this? What we mean by this is, until and unless there is a business reason to do so, please do not create multiple sites with the same content. Try and make your content unique and not duplicating it across pages. Track your traffic. When a publisher signs up with Google AdSense, we expect them to monitor their traffic and identify if there are any kind of anomalies. Some of the best ways to track your traffic are by using the custom URLs channel feature in the AdSense front end, which will help you understand on what kind of traffic are you receiving on certain pages as well as certain ad formats. As next steps, you can also use Google Analytics to track your traffic further and identify if there are any kind of anomalies. Prevent invalid click activity. Now, how do we define invalid click activity? Invalid click activity consists of any clicks or impressions that may artificially inflate an advertiser's cost or a publisher's earnings, and for which we cannot charge the advertiser. At Google, we have a team of analysts who constantly create automated systems as well as manually review clicks and impressions based on expected trends and patterns. When we see certain kinds of anomalies, we try and detect the reason for it. And if this is identified as invalid clicks or clicks that is not out of genuine user interest, we define that as invalid click activity. do not modify the AdSense code. We recommend that you follow the code implementation guide. If you have trouble, please visit the troubleshooting page or contact publisher support. In case you're using responsive ad units and you think that the ad format is not working in the expected way across screen sizes, even though not recommended, we say that you can modify the AdSense code until you're sure that you know what you're doing. All right, so now that we've spoken about our ecosystem, on why we create policies and some of the most common policies, let's talk more about some of the common triggers of policy warnings. So what are some of the common reasons for policy warnings? Ads placed on images that are primarily dynamic content, sexual content, deceptive layouts, unnatural attention, mislabeling, copyrighted materials, explicit text, and violent content. And let's see on why we have these policies in place. So ads placed on pages that are primarily dynamic content. What is the reason for us to not allow publishers to monetize on content which is dynamic content? The reason is that this content is not content that can be in control of the publisher, as this is primarily interaction between users. And as this is not in control of the publisher, the content could possibly be violating AdSense policies, and hence we do not allow monetization upon dynamic content. Sexual content. Again, as we all know, the AdSense platform is a family-safe network, and we do not allow monetization on any content which is sexually explicit or content that is sexually suggestive without being explicit, such as sheer lingerie as an example. As a golden practice, please remember, if you cannot view this content in front of your children, you should probably not monetizing it. Deceptive layouts. How do we define deceptive layouts? We define deceptive layouts in a way that users get confused in between the content and the ad. Now, if we see the example on the right, or the image on the right over here, we see that this is an example of a pure navigational gallery page site where the ads are just above the navigation button previous and next, and a user could easily get confused to click on the ad instead of clicking on the next or the previous button. Hence, please avoid such layouts to avoid accidental clicks. Unnatural attention. Any kinds of visuals or placements that call too much attention to ads, such as flashing arrows or explicitly stating above the ad, such as click here, is a violation of your policies and can lead to a policy action. Mislabeling. What do we mean by this? The AdSense ads can only be placed with acceptable headers such as advertisements or sponsored links. Any other variation of this is a violation of our policies and is not allowed. Copyrighted material. Again, if the content is not yours or if you do not have the legal rights to distribute it, please do not monetize upon the same. Another common reason for a policy violation is monetizing upon explicit text, such as erotic jokes, stories, discussions, or excessive use of profanity. Violent content. What are some of the common examples of violent content? They could include scenes from bloodshed, flight scenes, and gruesome or freak accidents. And the reason we do not want you to monetize upon this, as this content could be categorized as sensitive content, leading to a bad user experience upon monetization upon the same. Thank you, exit, or error pages. Monetizing upon these pages is not allowed, as we believe that when a user is on a thank you page, they are done with the sole intent of visiting that particular site. And by placing ads over there, it could lead to a distraction to a user and lead to a click, even though it was not intent to do so. So now that we've spoken about some of the common reasons for policy actions or policy warnings, let's talk about what should a publisher be doing when they receive a policy notification from Google. What should you be doing upon receiving a notification? Read the notification email, read through the policy page, fix the violation, and submit the appeal. Please note that when you receive a notification email from Google, you should not only be fixing the violation on the URL that was flagged, but if you think that there are similar violations elsewhere on the site, you fix the same as well. This is an example of what a violation notification looks in your AdSense front end, and hence we always recommend that you actively check your inbox in the AdSense front end, as well as the email address associated with your AdSense account. You can always reach out to us through our policy support forums, which include the AdSense Help Forum, the AdSense Help Center, policy FAQs, and the Inside AdSense blog. Hope you got a clear idea about some of our policies, some of the common reasons for our policy notifications, and what do you do when you receive a policy notification from us. So let's go over a few common questions that we've received. All right, so the first question we have here is, can you clarify the policy around the number of ads per page? As we all know that we do not have a policy anymore, a policy around the number of ads that can be placed on a page, but the way it's looked upon is that you should always have more content than ads on a particular page. And the reason behind this is that we do not want our users to be distracted by the ads, but that they should be able to find the content that they're looking out for, and that the content that is adding value to them as a user. Going ahead to the next question, what can I do to prevent invalid activity on my site? What we recommend as a best practice is that you constantly monitor the traffic on your site. And you can do this, as discussed earlier, by using the custom URLs channel feature in the AdSense front end, identifying on which URLs in your site are receiving the majority traffic, and similarly, which ad formats are receiving the majority traffic, and then doing a further deep dive in Google Analytics to understand if there are any kind of anomalies and if you should block or prevent any kind of invalid click activity. Is it permitted to use different AdSense accounts for one website? Yes, you are allowed to use different AdSense accounts for one website as long as there is a business reason to do the same. Can you outline rules around uses of images? Sometimes I have received a warning for a photo I thought was okay and not too racy. Ironic given the pic was from Google Images. Please remember, AdSense as a platform is a family-safe platform, and the policies for Google Images will be different for the policies that are for Google AdSense. So even if you see an image on Google Images that is not policy compliant, it is not okay to go ahead and place the same in your website through Google AdSense or monetize upon the same through Google AdSense. How to detect invalid clicks proactively? So again, like we just spoke, invalid clicks can be identified by using a two-step approach where you use the Google AdSense front end and use the custom URL channel feature, as well as do a deep dive through Google Analytics to identify if there are any kind of anomalies. So these are some of the common questions we received. We will go on and take over the live questions that we've also received in a short time. For now, I will be passing it on to Ajay, who will be talking to you now about some of the best monetization practices in AdSense.
Okay, thank you, Pratik. Thank you for that very informative session around policy. Firstly, before we jump into monetization best practices, one of the things that I would like to talk to you about is the recent change that we have on the 300 cross 250 ad unit on mobile. As you may know, prior to this, we had a policy that was not allowing us to put 300 cross 250 on mobile phone, which was above the fold. But today, if you guys have all seen the AdSense blog, this has changed, which means that you can implement 300 cross 250 above the fold, but you have to make sure that, as always, the ad density and the content density is proportional, which means that you need to still have more content than ads, but you can now put 300 cross 250 above the fold on mobile. And one of the big things that you have to notice, if you can see the slide over here, is that only a portion of the ad should be seen in the first view screen, which means that there will still be more content than ad. As you can see the implementation over here, there is a 300 cross 250, there's a title and a content, which is good. The better way to do it is to just have a 320 cross 100 on above the fold, 300 cross 250 after. And if you want the best implementation, just have 50% of the ad, which is 300 cross 250, showing up on your page. As all of you know, one of the big things about the whole AdSense monetization aspect is mobile. The way mobile traffic is growing is unbelievable. As of last year, there have been more searches on Google on mobile than on desktop, which means that having a great mobile monetization strategy is very, very important for you. And this 300 cross 250 is one of the best performing ad units on mobile, and the right implementation of 300 cross 250 could really take your monetization to the next level. I would go as far as to saying make sure you implement 300 cross 250 on all your mobile pages and make sure that you implement it in a way that you're getting the most out of it. Remember, it's not the number of ads that you have on the page, it's the number of good ads that you have on the page that drives your CPMs and drives your revenue. To make sure that you're driving the best CPMs, make sure you have the best implementation. Please also try to look into implementation of styles such as lazy loading on mobile, which means that the ad loads once you come to the scrolling. Once you scroll and once the user is on the page where the ad is, that's when the ad loads. This will improve your active view, which will improve your viewability, which will improve your CPM. So please keep this in mind, and please remember the policy has now changed, and now you can have 300 cross 250 above the fold, but you have to make sure that there is more content than ads. Please make sure to download the deck as we mentioned from the description earlier to go through this slide and make sure your implementation is spot on. Moving on, I would like to quickly talk to you regarding the matched content. As you may all know, matched content has been one of the rising features that and formats that we have on the AdSense interface. Match content is our version of native advertising format, and one of the big things about match content is you can earn revenue through native styled ads, improve reader retention by increasing page views and time spent on the site, additional revenue from incremental page views. The thing about matched content is that matched content is something that you implement on your page that shows recommendations of other parts of your page, which means users can come to your home page, be scrolling through the content that they're seeing, and they can see the matched content unit on the right, which will make recommendations to other pages on your site, which means that this will push up the retention, the page views, and also improve the performance of the ads on other pages where the user might normally not go to, which means that match content is an is a strategy that you can deploy to cover your site completely and make sure users spend more time on your page. If a user spends more time, he interacts with more ads. If he interacts with more ads, you get a better revenue. So keep this in mind when thinking about matched content. It's not only the revenue that you make from the ads within matched content, but it's also the overall improvement of retention that influences the performance of your site. Matched content is a native advertising form AdSense. With matched content, publishers can earn revenue through native ad styles. As you can see, we spoke about the native style. We already spoke about improving reader retention by increasing page views and time spent on the site, and additional revenue from incremental page views. If you can see the image on the right side, how the matched content has been implemented, it is not only suitable for desktop, but it is also suitable for mobile. And like I said, when you are looking at a strategy for monetization, mobile comes first, because mobile is where all the traffic's at and mobile is where all the revenue's at. So make sure to have a perfect implementation on mobile, and then make sure you do the same on desktop as well. So when you say native styled ads within a unit can help you earn revenue, as you know, match content makes recommendations of different pages on your site. But one of the things is the ads that show up within match content are also high revenue generators, which means that inside match content, you're showing extremely relevant ads, and this means that the user, when he's looking through the recommendations on the match content, is more likely to click on the ad because it's extremely relevant to what the user is seeing in the recommendations. One of the big benefits of matched content is site links help publishers with reader re-engagement and retention, which means that links from your site appear within the unit. Links are generated to match user interests and are based on recency, relevancy, and popularity. Images and headlines are taken from your page, which means that one of the things that you need to always think about when you're looking at match content is how relevant the ads are. And more than anything, you guys know, when you see something on Google search that has a site link, or that has a good image associated to the result, or is very relevant to something that you've searched before, the chances that you will click through the unit is extremely high, which means that when you click through this unit, the chances of converting is also very high. Also remember, even if they do not click on the ad in the matched content, they can click on the recommendations in the match content, which is a page within your own site, which means the user is never leaving the environment that you provide them, and you can always maximize from that user. Next. And it looks great on desktop. We have mentioned this. You have a lot of power in terms of how you want to customize this and how you want to make this look. So please make sure that you customize it according to the device, according to the layout of the page. Keep all of that in mind, because match content is very crucial, and the implementation of it is key because it is a native style. So I would like to quickly walk you through the next part of it as well. We want to show you the implementation steps of match content as well, which is because I think it's very important for you guys to sort of get this clarified. So as you can see, again, to mention, the deck is in the description. Please download it. The implementation guide is there. And if you see over here, all you have to do is sign into your AdSense account, select the native match content, use the drop down in the upper corner of the preview area to see which of your sites are eligible for match content. Also, please note that all your sites might not be eligible for match content. If they are not, please go and check how your site can be eligible for match content. Give your match content unit a name. In the style section, change the style of your match content unit to match your page. In the size section, choose the layout that fits your page. And one of the things that we like to also mention is see a live preview for all the eligible sites, so that you have a good idea and you know how this looks on your page. And I think it's really important to do this because it gives you a great idea of how this can potentially play out on your page. One of the simple options that you could do is, as you can see, and all of you might already be aware, it's extremely easy to customize, and it's one of those things that you don't have to spend too much time on, but you can get a great amount of granularity through this. So please make sure to use the simple options available on the UI to customize your match content. Again, we spoke about this, choosing the right size for the right page and the right device. So please make sure you do that. And best practices. This is the most important part. And this is what I want you to take away from match content, is that for the best results on match content, you have to make sure that you use a responsive size. Place at the end of the article, because you do not want to move the user from consuming the content. You want him to consume the content, but you also want the user to spend more time on your page. So at the end of the article would be a great place to implement match content. Checking the active view of the unit and iterating the placement is key in optimizing match content performance. A low active view measurement means that most of your site readers do not see your match content units. As you can see on the right side, for both mobile and desktop, we have shared the best implementation steps, which means that this is where you have to implement matched content. So I think this is one of the key things that we wanted to talk to you about. And now we will be jumping into the live questions that you have asked. So before jumping into the live questions, I have gone through some of the questions that you asked, and I can see that there are a lot of questions here around your account being disabled, your account being terminated, and all of these stuffs that you're not able to work with AdSense anymore. Like Pratik mentioned, please make sure to fix the violation not only on the URL that is identified, but also across all the sites that you own. And then please make sure to fill out the appeal form and reach out to the AdSense policy team. The only way that you can get back is this. So we would highly recommend sort of sticking to that process and making sure that you appeal your case if you feel that you have made all the fixes to the violations. Now, I'm just going to read out a couple of questions. We won't have time to go through all the questions, but we will try and do justice to the questions that are here. One of the common questions that we always get is, how do I improve my CPC on AdSense? Or some other different variations of this is, the CPC has been very low, the CPC has been declining since 2015. What can I do to increase my CPC? What we'd like you to understand is that from an AdSense perspective, all you can do is make sure that you're generating great amount of traffic to your page, which means that you need to understand where your users are at, which means that if your traffic is mostly from India, if your traffic is mostly from the US, if it's mostly from Australia, you need to customize your content to suit the audience based on where they're from. You need to customize the content to suit the audience on which device they're consuming it, which means that if a person is reading the content on a mobile phone, he is not sitting in front of the computer and he does not have the time to read the content the same way as it would appear on desktop. Maybe adapting the content to the device might be a good strategy. Customizing it based on seasonality will be a good strategy. So these are things that you could do in order to make your content really relevant to the user. Once the content is really relevant to the user, the ad slot becomes more valuable because there'll be more competition for the ad slot. And once there's more competition for the ad slot, then you will drive higher CPMs, which means that you will see better CPCs and you will see better click-through rate, which means that will improve the performance of your ad. So this is something that you could do from your end to sort of leverage, better CPMs, is sort of customizing the way the ad looks, customizing the way the content appears based on your user, and customizing the way the content appears based on your device. Second question, I am a search heavy publisher. Are there any tips that I could use to increase my monetization on AdSense? So one of the things that I'd like to talk to you about is, before I started the whole best practices session, I mentioned to you that most of the searches on Google are now happening on mobile as opposed to desktop, which means that you need to have a mobile first strategy for your site. One of the best options that we have to facilitate this is accelerated mobile pages. On accelerated mobile pages, as you may now know from an SEO standpoint, user experience and page speed are two key aspects that are being considered in the PageRank formula, which means if you have a good page speed, or if you have good user experience, your organic ranking will improve. So just keeping that in mind, make sure to implement accelerated mobile pages to get a better performance for your mobile site. One of the key things for you to consider is that accelerated mobile pages is just a HTML5 page with a custom JavaScript, which means that the implementation is easy. There are plugins for things like WordPress, and with the custom JavaScript, there are very little changes that you will need to make. So you will have to put very little effort to make sure that you're getting an extremely fast site. More than 70% of your users will drop out of your page if your page takes more than 3 seconds to load. So keep that in mind when you're implementing accelerated mobile pages. Now, quickly to jump into some policy questions over here so that Pratik can help you out over there, is why don't we look at what is the criteria for deductions that are made in the publisher estimated earnings form for invalid traffic or invalid activity? What are the basis for these deductions exactly? What are the best practices to avoid these deductions?
All right. So let's talk a little bit about how we make these deductions based on invalid click activity. Now, Google constantly builds automated systems and filters that monitor clicks and impressions on ad formats across ad platforms, across ad sizes, right? So basically what this means is that if our automated systems and filters, as well as our analysts, are able to identify that the clicks and impressions are invalid and are not out of genuine user interest, they are marked as invalid click activity. And as we are not allowed to charge our advertisers for any invalid click activity, this amount reflects in your account as deductions, because we are not allowed to charge our advertisers for clicks that are not out of genuine user interest. And hence, we always recommend that you constantly keep monitoring your traffic and identifying if there is any kind of invalid click activity and what could possibly be the source of this invalid click activity and how you can block the same.
Okay. Thank you. So one of the other questions that we're going to talk about is actually we see a lot of questions around invalid activity, and we're seeing a lot of questions over here around your accounts being disabled. So like Pratik mentioned, please make sure to go to the appeal form and clear after once you've fixed all your violations, and please make sure that you use the custom URL feature in the AdSense frontend to understand how the URLs are performing. And one of the other things is to also have a great implementation of analytics to make sure that you're able to monitor where most of your users are going through these invalid activities or dropping out, and making those fixes to sort of go ahead and make sure that your deductions are much lesser.
We actually see a lot of questions also around appeals, where our publishers say that I do not know what Google's expecting out of my appeal, right? So let me walk you through that process. When we basically review your appeal manually, what we're looking out for is whether you've understood what the violation was, that you've fixed the violation, and how you plan to mitigate any further violation of a similar type or any other type in the future in your account, so that the network is healthy and that it does not impact the ecosystem, right? So when you submit an appeal, please explain it to us on what the violation was in your opinion, how have you fixed it, and how do you plan to mitigate this risk in the future, to get us to give us the confidence that you understand our program policies and that your account will be in a good standing if we can go ahead and re-enable it. Going through further live questions.
Okay, I think that one of the other questions that we're getting over here is, why is the CPC declining so much? And how there are examples of my CPC used to be 20 cents, now it's become much lesser. What are the guide, what can I do in order to fix this? One thing that we want you to understand is, over time, over like every day, there are several thousand publishers that apply for AdSense, which means that the competition for is increasing and the number of publishers are increasing, which means that you have to keep your content regularly updated. You need to keep your content extremely relevant. You need to keep your content original. And these, unless you do all of this and make sure that you have high retention and great amount of traffic, you cannot be sure about your CPCs. And one of the big things that we have noticed as well is that once, it's not something that you do just one time with your content. It is a constant process of updating and making sure you stay ahead of the user, so that, because nowadays the user has so many choices that the minute they drop from your site, they will go to a similar site which has similar content, which means that if you don't have the right speed, the right UX, the right type of ads, and the right type of content, you could be losing users very drastically. So this is one of the things that we'd like to talk to you about, and also tell you that it's very important in order for you to do this, because that's why your CPCs are getting affected, because there's a lot more people providing same or similar content that you have, and that's why there are a lot of users that are dropping out. Based on your daily active user assessment, if you feel that your CPCs are being reduced, then I would ask you to look at ad placements. But more often than not, it is always the question of how regularly is your content updated, and how you customize your content based on the user experience.
Another question that we have is, what is the latest guideline on the number of AdSense placements allowed per page? Is it fine to place more than 3 sets of AdSense ads if the content is more than 2,000 words? So the answer to this is yes. The way we look at it now is that we do not have a restriction of the number of ad units that can be placed on a particular URL or a page. The policy is defined in a way that you should always have more content than ads, and that a user should be able to find the content first and not the ads. So just look at it this way, that when a user visits a particular page on your site, the first thing they should be able to see is the content, and they should be able to find that the content they're looking out for, and that the ads should not be the primary focus of the page.
One of the things, again, looking at all the questions that you guys have put for us here today, we're really happy that you're extremely engaged with all of the solutions that we're providing you. And one of the things that we'd like to address is making sure that you have specific ad units for specific devices, which means that having a mobile specific strategy and having a desktop specific strategy, make sure that you implement the right ads on the right device, and also to have the responsive unit as well in case you don't have the liberty of customizing both the pages. uh, to just to just give you an idea, ad units based on format and based on where they are placed can perform really well. And one of the main things about this is that on mobile phones, a lot of times we see that publishers have an extremely long scroll. So you need to decide if the long scroll works for you best. You need to decide if the new page, if you hit next, works for you best. But make sure that your ad implementation is flawless, because on mobile, like we told you earlier, regardless of what size you have, you always need to have 300 cross 250, because it's one of the best performing mobile ad units, not only here but all over the world. So we would really encourage you to explore that option. And like we mentioned, please look at the contents on this deck to clarify any more doubts that you may have. And we want to talk about one last thing, which is how can I block particular type of ads that are showing up on my site. As a lot of you might be selling things on your site, or you don't want ads from particular type of content, there is a category blocking option on AdSense where you can go and check uh block categories from where you don't want to see ads. If there are specific URLs from which you don't want to see ads that may be competitors, you can do a URL level blocking as well. I think that all of this would go extremely well in terms of making sure that the right ads show up on your page. So please make sure to block ad categories that you don't want to see, to block URLs that you don't want to see. Just going through one last question over here. Okay. So the thing is, there are questions regarding ad implementations on accelerated mobile pages. And one of the things that I'd like to tell you about accelerated mobile pages in terms of implementation is that AMP, like I said earlier, is a HTML page with custom JavaScript. So what AMP specializes in is it pre-renders the page and almost loads the page in an instance. One of the biggest benefits of having AMP is that your website has a possibility of showing up really high on the search, on mobile search. And in terms of ad implementations on AMP, one of the things that I'd like to talk to you about is in the first load screen of AMP, it's always good to have an ad only show 50%, like the implementation that we showed you, because remember, it's not about the number of ads, and it's about how many good ads that you have. So our recommendation for implementation on AMP is lazy loading, which means that only when the user scrolls to the part of the page where the ad is, the ad should load. Once you have this implementation enabled, what will happen as a result is your active view will go up. If your active view goes up, your viewability goes up, and that will give you better CPMs. So this is something that you should definitely keep in mind, and when you're implementing AMP. And like I said, if you have any other questions, feel free to write to us, or always feel free to get in touch through the support, the AdSense forum, the AdSense Help Center, the blog. All our updates are constantly there. Please do not forget to download the content that we have shared here today. The link is on the description, and we would definitely like to hear your feedback on the event, and we will be looking forward to talking to you again in the future. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. We hope you found this useful, and we will come back to you with more content around AdSense and how we can make your lives better with AdSense. We hope you have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you.